Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So happy you could join us on this frosty December morning. I'm Alice Lema. I'm a broker in Southern Oregon with John L. Scott Real Estate, and want to welcome back Guy Giles into the studio. He'll be coming in a minute. Mr. Guy Giles is with Mutual Mortgage, and he comes on the show once or twice a month and helps us dissect what's going on with the financial worlds and the world of mortgages and buyers and sellers, and always educational experience with Mr. Guy Giles of Mutual Mortgage. While we're waiting for him to come into the studio, let's check in with all three of our local counties. What's going on with the housing market in each county? Jackson County prices year over year this week are only up 1%. The average single-family residential home costing $520,868. The number sold year over year in Jackson County this week are down 29%. We only had 31 closings on SOMLS in Jackson County residential market this week. Number of listings year over year are up again, 9%. Got a trend going there, folks. We now have 751 active listings on SOMLS in just Jackson County residential. Josephine County prices this week were down 20%, and the average in Josephine County in the residential market is $438,060. Numbers sold year over year in Josephine County this week were down 25%. We only had 15 closings on SOMLS in Josephine County's residential market. Klamath County prices year over year were down 9% this week. Average residential home in Klamath County now costing $334,950. Numbers sold year over year in Klamath County this week were down a whopping 80% year over year. We only had 2 closings on SOMLS in Klamath County's residential markets. So you can see, folks, we're working up to a trend here. The number of listings year over year in Klamath County were up 16% this week. We have 304 active listings on Klamath County's SOMLS in the residential market. So consistently, all 3 counties are having increased inventory, and it's winter, folks. We don't normally have this much activity. Now we still have fewer homes on the market than we need to fill the buyer need, but we definitely have way more homes on the market than we did this time last year in all 3 counties. And that is noteworthy, folks. And talk to any realtor and you'll find out we're all listing properties, getting ready to put them on the market. We have a list ready to go for January, and it's not always the case. So if you're a buyer, then you're going to have more choices. If you're a seller, for a few more weeks, you will not have as much competition. So think about if you can scramble and get your house on the market. And if not, don't worry, do what's best for you. And speaking of doing what's best for you, let's bring in Guy Giles of Mutual Mortgage to talk to us about this week. Well, Guy Giles, thank you for being back on the show. We appreciate it.
Hey, Merry Christmas. So that time again.
It is that time again. It just happened so fast.
I know.
But we had kind of an eventful morning with some financial reports nationwide. Can you bring us up to speed on that?
Yeah, yesterday, we had the BLS numbers come out. You guys all know that's probably my favorite measure of how you look at jobless numbers, or new jobs. And in this case, we had 227,000 jobs come in, which, not being a negative guy, because things are actually going pretty good at work, to be honest with you. But if you really dig deeper into the numbers, you'll see a little bit of weakness in there. And what we need for home loan rates is the Fed to be a little nervous. And that's the reality of it. Sadly, in the old days, if there was a terrorist attack, we'd see really good rates the next day. You know, we're a little bit dependent. I mean, people are looking to invest their money for a very, very long time when they're investing in even treasuries that are only 10 years or mortgage-backed securities that, you know, that we're talking potentially 30 years. Um, you're going to either make your money fast or you're going to make your money at a slower pace, just depending on, you know, maybe your age or how aggressive you want to get. So really most things are just dependent on where people are placing their money at any given time. And what we've been waiting for on these home loan rates is for things to kind of cool down, so to speak. But every time we get these jobs numbers that look really good, we've been getting kicked kind of in the teeth every month. But like I said, at the end of the year, things have to kind of reconcile themselves. You know, there's a mandate to do that. So if the number maybe isn't accurate, they really need them to kind of, I don't even want to say come clean about it, because it wouldn't be an easy job to count the numbers, and I wouldn't want to be the guy to do it. But that said, the unemployment did tick up. Doesn't sound like much, but from it's funny. I put in my notes 4.2 to 4.2. It was actually 4.1 to 4.2 is where they ticked up a little bit. But if you look a little deeper, like what they call the U6 numbers, which a lot of times people will quit looking. You know, maybe it's just because it's the holiday season and they don't want to go to work at Fred Meyer for 2 months. You know, I'm not sure why, but for some reason they kind of fell out. If they're doing this household survey, they're calling people and they're asking them, hey, do you have a job? Are you looking for work? Are you on unemployment? Well, if their unemployment ran out and they didn't look for work in the last week, they're not counted anymore. So that
Also,
could
the
be,
shadow inventory of unemployed people. Is that what you're saying?
I love your real estate terms. Yeah. So that's awesome, but probably a little bit more accurate number as to where we are in the unemployment is about 7.8%. But this isn't something that's brand new. We've been going off a lot of these other numbers for a while now. So that's not like all of a sudden doom and gloom. We're at 8.8%. There was always a disparity between, I think I said that word wrong, between like the BLS numbers and probably where the actual numbers should be. So it's not like all of a sudden everything went bad. But if we were really, really looking at where unemployment should be, it probably should be a little bit closer to 7.8% right now.
And is that considered high, average, or
Yes,
low?
it would be considered high, but because people haven't been counting it like that for a while, we just go with 4.2 and say everything's great. So we're good. But I guess when the dust all settles, I don't think houses are going down. So go find one. Call Alice for it. I don't know where to go from there from the jobs numbers.
Well, and that's something to consider for the listening audience, because we've been flat in the price department or on a subtle decline for quite a while. Quite a while would be like 18 months, 12 months, 6 months, somewhere in there. And we're just starting to see these little tiny inklings of multiple offers here and there, shockingly, on houses that have been on the market all summer. People are starting to scoop them up. But it's because the interest rates are still outpacing the wages. You know, we want to say, oh, the rates are high, the rates are low, or whatever, but it really has to do with how much of a budget you have every month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's the wages and the jobs that affect the purchases.
Yeah, it's been a combined thing, at least from my end, because you know we're having to, especially when you get somebody pre-qualified, they come in, they say I want a $400,000 house, and you have a little bit of a tight debt to income ratio, and by debt to income is if you have $100 coming in and $40 going out, and you know that's a 40% debt to income ratio. If that's kind of tight, say around the 45 percent, then I'm trying to guess on taxes. I'm trying to guess on insurance. You know, we get an insurance binder. If I tell somebody you're approved for that $400,000, and they go out and they buy a house out in the country and the taxes are kind of low, their purchase price might go up a little bit. if they're kind of high and they're in central.
Oh, they're pre-approval.
Yeah, they're pre-approval, or you get a week into the thing. We've been really trying to overestimate on the insurance also because we don't know where that's going to come in. That's been a factor, along with the higher rates and everything. So it's a little bit more difficult to do the job right now, but people are qualifying. And the good news is if you're selling your house, you probably have a lot of equity in it because it's come up quite a bit.
Well, see, and that is the saving grace. If, when you're in these high interest rate environments. So we're going to have a break coming up in just a minute and a half. And we can talk more about the projections for 2025 and interest rates and such. But the struggle for purchasing right now, the buyers seem to be holding up. We still have buyers out there. They're still writing offers. They're still making deals. But like we were talking before the show started, it's a fist fight with the interest rates, with the budget. And now we're starting to get multiple offers again, here and there.
Wow. Well, I'm ready for something that's going to benefit my guys. Multiple offers are great for the sellers, and I'm always the guy on the other side that's got to see if they can go another $5,000 if they need a bid.
Well, and without buyers, we don't have a market, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We gotta help them get in some houses. So hopefully some relief's coming soon on that also.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be happening. We track the 3 counties every week, and we can talk more about that after the break. We're speaking to Mr. Guy Giles from Mutual Mortgage. He comes on the show once or twice a month and enlightens us and explains what's going on with the numbers. We'll have to take a quick break. Don't go away. Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema. I'm a broker here in beautiful Southern Oregon with John L. Scott Real Estate. And we're talking to Mr. Guy Giles from Mutual Mortgage, comes on the show once or twice a month and brings us up to speed on what is going on in the world of finance and interest rates and mortgages. Welcome back, Guy.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be back. Sorry,
well, we're glad to have you. So before the break, we were talking about how hard it is to be a buyer right now. And on top of that, the prices might start going up. And that's going to be quite the pickle. What do you think?
Well, I think we'll just need a little bit of relief someplace, either with earnings going up, rates going down a little bit, or the housing stabilizing some. I think, what could maybe cause it to help a little bit, I don't know a lot, rents are finally going down some.
Oh, that's true. Nationally, so even. Yeah.
If it makes it to where it's a whole lot, I don't see major moves, but I'm trying to look for something for these guys. If it's cheap enough to rent for a little while, maybe people hold out, and then that would cause the sellers to panic a little bit. And I don't know. I've been a guy that's been opposite that the whole time. I still think that housing is going to go up and up and up. It's because there's just not enough to keep up with it.
Well, so can we take a little tangent, because Southern Oregon has that trajectory. Even though we have these little bobbles up and down a little bit, and it's been down for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. But it's if you look at the long chart, it's always going up because everybody wants to live here.
It's true. I don't know what they're doing down in California to make it more attractive for people to stay there. So I assume they will continue to work their way north. And if you just look at populations and things, we need more houses for people. So either they're going to solve them with a lot of apartments or build a little bit. But either way, you're going to want a yard, at some point for a dog, a kid, whatever you got. And those are the places that we sell. And hopefully we can come up with some more of those for people. So I guess it remains to be seen.
Yeah. Well, and that's what Southern Oregon is known for. Yeah.
Well, the good news, I guess, is if you're in a little apartment or something, there's a lot of BLM land around here that you can go take your dog for a walk.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's beautiful, and the lakes, and we all appreciate it. But that just means that the amount of land for citizens is limited, but that's a different interview.
Yeah, we'll see. There is talk with the new administration coming in about opening up some public lands. Now, I don't know what say they'll have in
Oh,
that.
I hadn't heard that.
Yes, yeah, I that was one of the promises to try to open up some of the. Now,
Huh.
they're not saying Southern Oregon. We're going to get a lot of resistance in this state because everybody doesn't have
Mhm.
a lot of wilderness for
Well,
everybody.
there's other states that are more open to that
Yeah, so I
than
guess
Oregon.
there's probably a lot coming down that we'll have to see what's going on. But the immediate thing I think that can affect us is the rates.
Yeah.
And despite these numbers today, the markets are reacting like that 227,000 jobs on the BLS report wasn't as strong as the headline would say. So the 10-year Treasury has backed off, just a little bit. The mortgage-backed securities, which is what we actually trade on for our houses, are a little bit better today. Not huge, but lately when we've been getting these numbers that have been looking okay in the headlines for the jobs, our rates have gotten worse the last couple of months. And this time they came out, it was a little stronger than they actually anticipated. And the mortgage rates are getting a little bit better today. So that shows that the Fed, well, not necessarily the Fed, but the investors basically are looking at things a little bit, probably more realistically, like they should, and not just pulling out of the longer term stuff anyway to make a quick buck in the stock market. So it's going okay for mortgage rates, even though the jobs number was kind of strong.
So how do you advise buyers in this kind of environment? Because it's very tricky and it's
Well,
constantly changing. So what do the conversations look like?
I quit getting tricky. I say lock. Let's lock your loan. Because the
Very
reality is I can
interesting.
float you down. So if rates come down before
Oh, okay.
you're done, you're protected from them going up. So you could sleep at night. And I mean, if it was me and it was my house, I'd probably hold off just a little bit, and then just watch them because I do think that they're going to trend, keep trending down. But for my people, it's a peace of mind thing. So I'm locking them in, and and they know what the worst is that they've got, and I've floated down quite a few of them by
Hmm.
closing. So I used to be able to anticipate a lot about what was going to happen. I could look at Bloomberg, figure out what numbers were going to come out the next month. That actually went away 2014, 2015. Everything just numbers have been weird ever since then, through Republicans, through Democrats, through everybody. So I'm not going to even blame anybody on that. But I've quit trying to have a crystal ball when it comes to these rates. I do think that they'll be down a little bit, not a ton, but I think if once people see anything in the fives, if it's a 5.9999 and you just keep saying nine for an hour and a half, it's going to cause a lot of people to buy. Um,
So
you know,
that's an
it's just
interesting kind of invisible ceiling. So you're saying that if it dips into the fives, even if it's 5.9, that the market would get excited. Is that what
I
you're saying?
I think so. Yeah, I really do. I'm still getting phone calls from people that I thought I'd be refinancing by now. Hey, is it time? Is it time? I've not kidding you, I've probably got 80 people that I've done loans for.
Wow.
And then they're not saying 59999. That may not be the point. 6.1 might be, or 5.7. It's on an individual.
Hmm. Well, it depends on where you started.
Yeah, the good thing is just to call me, even if I'm not the guy that originally did your loan, because we're not going
Hmm.
to charge you any bank fees for the refinance piece. And there's going to be a lot of people, unfortunately, that have got caught up in the credit card, the car thing. And although I'm not the biggest guy saying, hey, why don't you come refinance your 10-year debt into 30-year debt, or 5-year debt into 30-year debt,
Right.
refinance, sometimes it could be the difference in keeping your house or keeping from going bankrupt, because people are pinched with these higher rates right now, and if
Hmm.
you're paying.
Well, and just the economy in general, the inflation, and this is not political, but prices are high for everything, and you really have to watch your pennies.
It's absolutely true. I mean, I just see what's on the credit report, so I sometimes I even lose lose focus other than
Mm-hmm.
when I'm at the gas station or than when I'm at the store.
Mm-hmm.
That there's other aspects of this thing. I just try to do, the best I can mathematically for somebody. And if they have 3 credit cards at 28%, a ton of equity in their house, a lot of times, I mean, gosh, I've saved people $1,200-1,300 a month. And with that savings, most of the time I can figure out an amortization chart. And if you take half that savings
Mm-hmm.
and go buy a beer or whatever you're going to do with it, and then the other half of the savings and put that extra towards principal, you'd probably still pay that house off sooner than you would right now, and you're not struggling like you were struggling.
Well, and like you said, just peace of mind, even if you're not actually struggling, just being able to have some calm in your financial life and not worry about it, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Should be a blessing, and hopefully some things will come down in price. But we can't promise anything right now, so we just gotta do the best we can.
So going back to the report this morning from the feds, they were waiting to see what the unemployment rate was. Is that correct?
Well, there, there, there's a couple of different things. I mean, the unemployment has become a bigger, a bigger aspect of this. They started saying probably about 8 or 9 months ago that they're going to start watching, the unemployment rate also. And it did tick up just a little bit, like I said, not probably like it should be really accurately shown, but it did go up from 4.1 to 4.2. So yeah, I mean, it's going up, and the Fed does seem to be over the last few months looking at some things, more realistically than they were before. You can't just leave it to, just a one trick pony. There's a lot of factors that go into a strong economy, and it's not just jobs, it's not just inflation, it's not just one thing. If you start seeing the jobs really, the unemployment rate ticking up, you can't assume that inflation is going to stay high. So if you're just looking at inflation and you're not looking ahead to see trends within the jobs market and things like that, then you're going to be behind, and they're a little notorious for being behind ball and making moves sometimes. So
Yeah, that's kind of how we got into the spot, right?
I think so. I think we would have been in and out by now, but
Yeah.
no one's
Well,
gonna.
then that's why we're glad that you're here. We're talking to Guy Giles, Mutual Mortgage, also one of our sponsors. Thank you so much. We'll be right back after a quick word for our other sponsors. Don't go away. Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. Just a reminder that you can catch Guy Giles again tomorrow, Sunday at 8 a.m. for a repeat of this broadcast. We also want to say thank you so much to all of our sponsors, Guy Giles Mutual Mortgage, John L. Scott, Ashland and Medford, and our local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. We appreciate you donating to our show and making it possible to bring it to the airwaves every week. So, Guy, during the break, we had quite a conversation, and you made the comment that in just 30 days, we could have a different landscape. Can we talk about that?
Well, yeah. I gosh, it goes super deep. I mean, these guys aren't. The Fed isn't necessarily beholden to anybody, which it was kind of designed that way. So you didn't have one administration or another administration really,
The less
putting them
political.
on. Yeah, being political, and so the idea of it in that respect is good. And hopefully we get levity by a balance of different people getting elected, because we don't want one just kind of pushing policy for everything. But these guys are just really trying to achieve two things, and I alluded to it before the break. But their dual mandate, for one, is focusing on making sure that inflation is stable and it's low, because that doesn't really help anybody. It makes us feel good about our houses and things like that, when we're buying houses. But a a nice fair appreciation is good, not 20% per year, going up,
Hmm.
and nobody can afford a
Well,
house.
something sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah, and then their other part that they're tasked with is maximum employment. And my frustration with them has been the numbers on the unemployment over the last years. They changed it before that, so they've been tweaking with numbers forever. It's just like on inflation when they take gas and food out of the inflation numbers.
Yeah. Why did they do that?
Well, because they say it's too volatile, that it can go up and down so much in one month that it would skew the numbers. So they wanted to have
Oh,
it more
okay.
stable. So, but I think it's a real factor. I mean, for a guy
Yeah.
who eats food and uses fuel, but who am I? Anyway, so I guess what I'm saying is that these guys are going to have to, you know try to keep everybody happy. We have a new administration coming in. It's going to be a new Congress. It's going to be, everything. Problem is, there's going to be a whole bunch of old in there. The old Cheneys, the old, all the guys that have been there forever ruining things are still there. They're going to fight anything that anybody does just to keep the status quo. And I don't know. I'm probably going on a little bit of a tangent here, so I'll shut up about that. I can see your face on the YouTube. But and I'm talking everybody. I'm not just blaming these Republicans. I mean, honestly, we have a lot of people in government right now that have a lot of power over us, and they want to try to keep that. And so they're going to fight. They're going to fight. The Democrats are going to fight the Republicans. They're going to fight anybody that is trying to disrupt that. So I can't come up with an answer for what is going to happen in January. I can't come up with an answer for what's going to happen next year. I do think we should probably see really low sixes, maybe high fives is where our home loan rates are going to go. We'll probably know a little bit more about the direction in the next couple of weeks. So I'll
So
I
does the
don't
mortgage industry actually wait for the administration change in
know.
late January, or are you ahead of it?
We try to be ahead of it, and then like I said, I don't think something major is going to happen when Trump comes in. The only thing that could really happen that would make home loan rates just drop tomorrow is like they did years ago after the financial crash, which we're not in any kind of an emergency like that at all right now. But when the Fed stepped in and started buying mortgage-backed securities, they've tapered that off over the last couple of years. That's kind of hurt home loan rates also. I, um, I'm not necessarily, it would be great for me, but I don't know that it's a good thing for them to go step in and start buying mortgage-backed securities again right now. I
Is
really
that
think,
inflationary also?
well, yeah, it would be. That's what I mean. I really think what the Fed is doing actually right at this moment, although I've criticized them a lot over the last few years, I think what they're doing right now is exactly what they should be doing. They need to be really focused on what's going on with inflation and the economy, and what we really need to do is fiscally get this country to where we're not going into debt more every year.
Oh, pay our
I
bills.
mean, yeah, I mean, yeah. Let's get some fiscal responsibility in there, because who's gonna go and invest in a bond that they're gonna have for 10 years at what, 4.5%, 4%, and then have inflation eat up 10 times that much. But if we're getting our federal deficit under control, which is the key to this whole country staying, even people wanting to trade on the dollar, um, all of that has to do with us and how we spend as a country. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying there's not things we need to spend money on, but I'm saying for the defense, for these guys to fail 7 out of 7 audits in the history of our Defense Department, somebody's spending money that they shouldn't be spending,
Hmm.
and probably on wars that we maybe shouldn't be in. And I don't know what the heck that has to do with buying a house in Southern Oregon, but at the end of the day, it really
Well,
does.
it affects everybody's finances. Yeah.
Yeah, so that, if we're gonna fix everything, we need to start with the federal deficit. It's gonna be painful. That doesn't mean we have to kick grandma off of Social Security, but we just have to look at spending and quit growing the government, because if you look at the vast amount of the vast majority of the jobs that were actually created last month,
Hmm.
they were all healthcare and they were all government. Both are pretty buffered from the cycles that we go through with the
Well,
unemployment,
that
with
would
the
explain a
economy.
lot. Yeah, that would explain a lot of the disparity. So let's go back to this time last year. And I know we didn't talk about this, so I'm catching you by surprise. But do you remember that this time last year, when we were doing our projections,
Mhm.
that we were anticipating some interest rate increases, but nowhere near the amount or the level, the high level. And so the market spent a lot of this year just digesting the shock, but still people bought houses.
Yeah,
It's like the
I
market did not come to a screeching halt. It was just messy and hard.
yeah, that, that's to kind of say the least. I am definitely seeing family members jumping in, trying to help
Hmm.
family members get into a house. But yeah, I know this year has been a whole lot better than last year as far as my
Then
numbers.
23.
Yeah. Um, so it has got better, and people are still buying houses. Nothing's going to change the fact that you might change jobs, not you or me necessarily, but you might move, you have a kid, life happens, and people are going to continue to buy houses
Hmm.
at the pace that we were the last. We've been spoiled for 10 years, ever since the crash. Let's face it. I mean, people were buying houses for $80,000 after the crash that they're now selling for $350,000. Um, so even though,
That time is gone, folks.
yeah, yeah,
That time is gone.
and let's hope it doesn't come back, because we don't want everybody to
Well,
go
right.
through that
That's
again.
a good point, because that was a whole lot of trauma on people of all kinds. It was very, very sad.
But with
But
all the toughness, in it being more expensive for everything, people have really benefited with their houses as far as having a lot of equity in them at this point.
mhm.
So,
Well, and remember back when it was so scary to buy a house, we were in the crash, we were coming out of the crash, but we didn't know it. We didn't know where we were until after it was behind us and we could look behind
mhm,
us and say, oh yeah, that was it and it's better now. So when you're in the middle of these market changes, you just got to get quiet and understand what to do for you and your family. And
that's
if you look at it that way and you buy a house and it turns out to be great and you get a place to live, there's nothing better than that.
no, no, and that's why it's just super important to sit down and have the conversation financially, and to have a good agent that you're working with that's gonna get you in the right house. And if you just look at everything, as a whole, the decision becomes easy whether you're or not you should buy. And
Yeah, it takes the noise away, right?
yeah, yeah. And so you come in with a budget, and I'll have people do that. I'll have people go pay like they already have that mortgage payment while they're saving their down payment, and it's just a nice way to try it on.
Yeah, we're talking to Mr. Guy Giles from Mutual Mortgage, and we will be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. We've got more discussion of 2025. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. We're talking to Guy Giles, Mutual Mortgage, this week. And because it's the end of the year and because we have so much transition going on in the economy at this time, our conversation is really broad and very deep and getting into some technical stuff. But that helps all of our consumers understand what decisions to make and why. So appreciate you being on the show again, Guy.
Well, thanks. Yeah, there's a lot of variables when it comes to this, so we do tend to end up on some different rabbit trails that I usually regret when I listen back to them.
No,
I,
no, it's all good, and it's all helpful education for people. But for the few minutes we have left, I want to definitely talk about where do we go from here as buyers and sellers, and what kind of programs does Mutual have coming up for next year? And what about self-employed people?
yeah, I think that that's probably where we shine better than anybody else in town because we have these DSCR programs. These programs are designed for buying an investment property. Um, you put down a decent down payment, 25% on these. You can, as long as that thing pays for itself, if you're a self-employed person or just somebody that's accumulating properties, as long as that's gonna kind of pay for itself where the rents take care of what the payment would be, they figure you're already making the down payment for them. If they had to take that house back, worst case scenario, um, they're not gonna get hurt as an investor. So they allow you to do that without documenting your income, that basically the house is qualifying for itself.
Wow. So that's different than a regular real estate pre-qualification.
It's kind of nice as far as that goes, and the difference in us and everybody around is we do these in-house. So I know that may not mean a lot to you if you're just listening on this show or just listening to the program or don't do these, but if you broker out a loan, meaning that you're not the place actually funding it, that it's another entity that you're
So you're
just
kind of subcontracting.
yeah, you're like the middleman. You lose so much control of the process, and it can be fine, but it can be not a fun process. But having it, under our roof, it's actually a really nice benefit. And we're doing that also with the bank statement loans for investors, or pardon me, not for investors, but for self-employed people. And I hate paying taxes. They're a necessary thing, but there's a lot of self-employed people that are able to write a lot of things off. And if you do that and you still make a really good living, kind of where the stated loans started out, with good intentions for people that just don't show the income, but they do make it.
Mhm.
Those are in-house also. Just we'll take all of your bank statements. We'll look at them for the last 12 or 24 months, depending on the program, and give you a percentage of them. Usually it's around half. Give you credit
So are you, is that being examined more for cash flow?
for cash.
Cash flow? Are you examining the bank statements for
Oh
cash
yes, cash
flow?
flow. I could not understand what you said
Oh,
twice.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
so no,
talk
I
fast.
got it. So yes, yeah, yes. They will just want to make sure that you got a decent amount of money coming in. And anyway, they understand that writing things off are part of the economy.
Mhm. Well, that's very interesting because it accommodates the modality of doing business, which is different. If you're a W-2 and you're collecting a paycheck, all the lenders love that, right?
Oh yeah,
Or
yeah.
you've got Social Security that's really stable, or uh, what do you call the pensions that are really stable? But we have a lot of independent business people that are very successful here in Southern Oregon.
Yeah, and they're really successful about turning their profits into losses by the end of the year.
On paper.
So yeah, just on paper. And like I said, that's one thing that wasn't there after the crash for a little while, because it got abused. They started opening up those kinds of loans for anybody with a 680 FICO score. And anyway, it ended up being a lot of the problems that we had with the crash. But
Mhm.
they haven't they haven't got any looser on them. Once they open them up just for self-employed people, thankfully they're not pushing the envelope at all. So I don't think
Mhm.
that they're going to necessarily hurt our chances of keeping a good strong housing market. Everybody is actually still qualifying for the loans that they're getting these days.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Well, and the housing crisis feels really pretty close, but I'm just looking at some numbers and we're going on 30 years. Is that right? 20 years. 20 years ago. So, and this brings up a point that we heard Lennox Scott, who owns John L. Scott. It's the family member that owns the John L. Scott Real Estate Corporation.
Mhm.
And he recently said that we're entering into a new cycle again. So we had the crash of 07, 08 going on 15, 20 years ago. And then we had a recovery. And then this last year and a half or so, we had another relatively minor, I mean, I know it was painful for everybody, it was relatively minor downturn. And he feels that 2025, we're coming out of it. 2025 and 2026 is going to be the relaunch of the new market.
I'm pretty hopeful for where it's going. I mean, let's face it, it has been brutal, so we really don't have a lot of ways to go from where it has the last couple of years. Yeah, so I agree with him. I'd like to hear, what he said. I don't know if there's anywhere that people can get hold of that, or that was just some insight.
Yeah, I'll find out. Because we do get, as John L. Scott people, we get these updates, but we get them from everywhere. We have realtor.com. We have First American Title economists. We have the National Association of Realtor Economists, which is Dr. Lawrence Yun. So we do a really good job, people like you and I, of collecting all this information and bringing it to the public.
Yeah, just figuring out somewhere in the middle. I was at your tailgate at the Ducks games last Saturday, the John L. Scott one, but we talked more about football than we did what Lennox.
Well, that's good. You have to have some downtime.
We got to go Ducks. They're actually doing really good this year, so
Are they?
see what happens tonight.
Yeah, I work on the
Football,
weekends.
girl,
I don't go to those.
But I do believe this next year is going to be pretty good.
Well, and we're starting to see signs of that. And so we never want to be overly hopeful, but we never want to be overly pessimistic. And so that's why Guy Giles and we're always down in the data. And so that's why it bothers us when the job reports are fudged later,
Right.
Like they
Yes.
come out and then they're adjusted later. And it's like, well, why don't you just give us the number?
I know, and even if you don't have it that much, they should put a little more or like right at that moment, because revisions are a necessary thing. Put a little more emphasis on what got revised that month before or the 2 months before, because
Oh yeah,
it's always
make a
the
note.
headline,
Yeah.
headline. But that's what I meant about even since these numbers just came out yesterday on Friday, the investors are already realizing that that's $227,000 or dollar. Those 227,000 jobs weren't as strong as what the headline would actually read. I mean, the only real gains in these numbers over the last 3 months have been 16 and 19-year-olds. And let's hope they stay in school at least through high school.
Well, and you have to be 18 to buy a house.
Yeah, well, mostly, I mean, those are seasonal jobs that are not necessarily reflecting good wage jobs for families.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting times. We have some buoyancy starting to show up. We've got a lot of inventory in all 3 counties. We've got just weeks and weeks in a row of all 3 counties having more inventory. And it's surprising that we still don't have quite enough to meet the demand. And the demand is not as strong as it used to be. So it's a really weird time.
Is that a normal thing for you guys? Because I don't track that on my side as much as you.
It's an Alice thing.
No, I know. I love that we watch all that. But I mean, is it normal around Christmas for people to list houses? It doesn't seem.
No, that's the other thing. We are so seasonal. And we have a lot of decorators, Christmas decorators, that don't want to sell their house until after it's over. But people are really pushing getting their houses on the market because they don't want to deal with the competition, because there is a huge wave. We're all thinking there's a huge wave of listings coming.
Wow.
And we just have a few seconds left. Sorry. Give us your phone number, give us your email where people can reach you.
Well, phone number is 541-944-6987, and you can Google me, or it's Giles at mutualmortgage.com.
Well, and thank you so much for coming on the show again. You are a great breadth of education, and we love having you. Thank you, Guy.
Well, thanks for having me. I hope you guys have a good Christmas.
And we'll talk to Guy Giles again next month. You can also hear him repeated on this episode tomorrow morning, Sunday at 8 a.m. In the meantime, enjoy a Southern Oregon weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye, folks.